Give me a thumbs up if you would like to see a more sustainable, healthy, compassionate, just, and well-fed human presence on earth. Give me a thumbs up. All right. And give me 2 thumbs up if you are eating in a way that will make that possible. If you are eating a plant-based or a plant-strong diet, you're eating the only diet that will support the continuation of life on earth as we know it. This beautiful earth that is so worthy of great stewardship. So give me 2 thumbs up if you're eating in a way that's going to allow us to keep living here. And thank you very much. All right. So welcome. My name is Reverend Beth Love. I will be 66 years old tomorrow. I live in Santa Cruz, California, and I run the nonprofit organization Eat for the Earth. My veganism all started with my mom. When I was 10 or 11, 12, somewhere around there in the late 60s, early 70s, my mom started our family on a journey that ended us up as whole food vegetarians. We were giving up the red meat, the processed meat, and eventually all the meat. My mom knew back then because the science was already there, what the World Health Organization came out with recently, that red and processed meats are carcinogenic. My mom knew it back then. You know, there were all sorts of plant-based experts way back then that knew it, and the science was there. We're still not there as a human family, are we? But anyway, that's where my journey to veganism started, was with vegetarianism. The whole family became vegetarian because my mom learned about the health benefits. There were also challenges in my childhood, though. In 1988, I got into recovery from childhood trauma. I got into a 12-step program called Codependence Anonymous. And there's, if you've ever been in a 12-step program, you know that there are a number of steps in the process. And the third step asks us to give our will and our life over, to turn our will and our life over to God or to a loving spiritual source as we understand that source. And when I got to the third step, having been a vegetarian for over 20 years at that point, or approximately 20 years at that point, and I got to the third step, I just choked up. I felt terrified. I felt surely that God was going to make me eat meat. That if I really turned my life and my will over, God would make me do this thing that I did not want to do. And the people in the program around me were saying, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why would God want you to eat meat? And I didn't know the answer to that. But I was walking down the street in my town one day, and I passed this bookstore that was having a sidewalk sale. And this book literally fell out on the sidewalk in front of my feet. It was called The Higher Taste, and it was a guide to karma-free eating. It was a Hare Krishna cookbook. And because it fell out of my feet, I picked it up, I bought it, and I went home and read it. And I had an epiphany by reading that book that my vegetarianism was dedicated to my ego. It was about, I don't want to put that disgusting stuff in my body. It was very egotistical, and it was that orientation that God might want me to give up, not the vegetarianism itself. So in reading the book, what I learned from the Hare Krishnas, who are vegetarian, I learned about this concept of choosing to eat in a way that doesn't do any harm to any living beings for our pleasure. And so I made a commitment to do just that. And that commitment ultimately did lead to veganism, because, as you know, if you're watching this, the dairy industry is also extremely cruel, and even more cruel than the meat industry in many cases. So I've now been vegan for about 25 years, and I'm so very grateful that God wanted me to give up my orientation, my egotistic orientation of vegetarianism, and take a more spiritual approach that really suits me well. So since my childhood, I've had a calling. I knew from the age of about 10 on that I was here to make a difference in the world, that I was going to make a change in the world. And I knew just how the world could be changed, too. I was very clear. In the family that I lived in, with what I was experiencing, I knew that if we could raise children differently, if we could make sure that children were well loved and cared for and treated very peacefully, and they were taught how to be peaceful, contributing members of society, if they were raised in such a way that they could realize their potential, that we would change the world. Because those children will grow up to be adults who would, not go to war against each other, and who would take care of our planet and behave kindly to each other, and that we would create a really different world. through creating a new type of childhood. And so throughout my career, starting in my teens, that was the driving force for me. Was I want the children of the world to have what they need. And so, whether it was running Montessori schools, which, I co-led a Montessori school for the first time in my teens, and then took up that career for quite a while, or whether it was running nonprofit organizations dedicated to the issue of child abuse, or later founding a families ministry in a church that I helped to found and worked in leadership for over 20 years. This is a picture of me with the 2.5 to 4-year-olds. We're learning to meditate together using some beads. And, throughout my career, I was either working with the children directly or working with families, supporting parents to have better tools for raising their children, or working with adults, for instance, volunteering in the state prison system, or working with adult learners to heal their childhood wounds so that they could realize their potential better. It was always about the children. Now, around 2014, late 2014, early 2015, I started again having this sensation, having this inner knowing that I needed to leave where I was working. I'd had all these different careers, and I was working in this church that I really loved my work. I loved the volunteering in the prison. I loved working with the 2.5 to 4-year-olds on Sunday mornings and supervising the whole families ministry team and so forth. But I really got the very strong guidance from the universe that it was time to go. And so as I made my preparations to leave, I didn't know why, but I knew that there was something else in store for me. And it wasn't until I had left that I actually learned what was next, because I was living in this question of why, God, why did I need to leave this place that I loved, and what's next? That my husband and I went to see a movie. The movie was Cowspiracy. And if you haven't seen Cowspiracy, I highly recommend it. It's a movie that exposes the environmental harm caused by animal agriculture. Now, as a long-term vegan, I already knew that my diet was the single most powerful act that I could do, or that any person could do, to contribute to a more sustainable earth. But I had not really ever made it a career. And what happened was we saw the movie, and then we went out to eat lunch afterwards, and my husband and I were sitting and eating lunch, and he was doing what he so often does, just piling on all this great, lovely words to me, telling me how awesome I am, and how I have this really great idea that it's all about the children, and we need to do differently by the children so we can change the world. Like my husband is telling me my calling to me. And usually I'm like, oh yeah, bring it on, baby. I love it. I love it when you talk like this. But instead, I was just noticing this growing impatience in me. I was just getting more and more impatient until finally I just interrupted him. I blurted out, like, what difference does it make, if 3-year-olds can meditate? What difference does it make if men in the state prison are healing their childhood wounds, or if parents are getting better tools for parenting? What difference does it make if there is no habitable earth for our children to live on? And that was the moment when I realized why I had to leave and what was next for me. I knew that what perhaps most people don't know, which is the power of diet. I knew that people needed to change our diets in order to keep living here. And so I just, as fast as I could, I started teaching classes. In my house, I started running programs to support people to try the whole food plant-based diet and see how it felt, and coaching people, supporting people to make this dietary shift. This is a picture of a vegan cheese class we did. It was a very popular class. It still is. And I had so much fun for about 2 years. It was great fun having people over and developing recipes, writing my first book and getting it published, getting the second book going, and having the program and seeing people change their lives and feel healthier and have epiphanies about the spiritual benefits of changing to this way of life. And then I suddenly kind of had a wake-up call after about 2 years. I realized that what I had done was go out of this long-term relationship with this calling that I'd had as a minister and as a leader in this church, into a rebound relationship with this really fun, sexy, playful occupation of teaching people in my home and taking on coaching clients. And it was really fun and everything. But I realized there was a big disconnect between my goal, which was a habitable earth for our children, and really the way I was going about getting to that goal, because I had helped such a small number of people really in the whole scheme of things. And if we're going to continue living here, time is of the essence. We need to do this thing quickly. We need to change diets on a planetary basis, especially in the developed world or in countries like mine in the United States where we eat such meat-centric, animal product-centric diets. Like, we don't have time to mess around. So I studied for about a year and met with a lot of people and kind of tried to figure out what can one person do, and ultimately decided to start this organization, Eat for the Earth, to work with individuals, groups, and institutions for personal change and systems change, for the purpose of making it easier for people to eat more plants and less animal products. We are not a vegan organization. I'm vegan. We only serve plants at any any event where we serve food, and we only teach plant-based cooking, entirely 100% plant-based. But what our ask is of the people of the world is eat in a way that allows us to all keep living here. Because we don't all need to go vegan. Of course, we ultimately will. I believe we ultimately will. But even if some people are still eating a little bit of meat and dairy, we can still sustain life on the earth, right? It's not what I want. It's not what I pray for. But our ask is intended to be something that everybody can get behind. We want the tent to be really big. So we just ask people, like, go as far as you can. Sort of like Melanie Joy says, be as vegan as you can. Go as far as you can to be part of the solution. So we want it to be easier for people. Many of you watching are probably vegans or plant-based or want to be vegan or vegetarian, and you know that it's countercultural probably in your culture. It certainly is in mine. Like, if I go to any family gathering or something, that's not what's being served. Even though my mother started us as vegetarians, it didn't stick with the rest of the family. If I go to, when I was working in different kinds of organizations, if I went to an event that was serving food, it wasn't food I could eat for the most part. And you also know, if you're on this path, that people are going to make fun of you, that they're going to feel entitled to tell you their fears for you, and they're going to be fearful. They're going to think that you're going to get sick or something. Like, it's just not easy enough. So our goal at Eat for the Earth is to make it more the norm, so that restaurants are serving more plant-based food, so that institutions like governments and hospitals are serving more plant-based food, so that doctors understand the value of eating plant-based and are prescribing it for their patients, and so that people have the tools and skills and community to be able to do it. So we do a lot of different things, but I'm just going to share a few things with you. This is a picture of someone getting her blood taken, and you can see there's people lined up behind her. They're next in line. This is for a program that we run. It's a very short program. It's an immersion in a whole food, plant-based lifestyle for 10 days. Sometimes it takes as long as 15 days because of the scheduling. But we test people at the beginning for their cholesterol, their LDL cholesterol, their HDL, their triglycerides, their glucose, their blood pressure, their height, weight, BMI, and we give them the figures that they are at the start, and then we immerse them in this healthy, sustainable, compassionate way of eating, this just way of eating. We give them lots of recipes and support and community and meal plans and encouragement. And at the end, we test them again. And do you know what? So far, we've had 5 rounds of the program, and there has not been a single person who showed up for the last test who hasn't had at least one improvement on one of their biomarkers. And for the people who've taken it very seriously and done the diet really well, many of them have had improvements on all of the biomarkers. And some of them have had just remarkable things happen, like a woman whose LDL cholesterol was too high to measure, ending up with an LDL of 68, which Dr. Michael Greger would call heart attack proof. Or a man whose blood pressure was too high to measure, coming down to a very healthy level. And so we know this diet works. We know it's magical. And what's really cool about this program, in addition to helping individuals change their lives, we're partnering with medical institutions like our county clinic and like nonprofit healthcare clinics that serve marginalized people who have higher rates of diabetes, higher rates of obesity because of the racist system that we're living in. And we partner with these institutions so that the healthcare providers can see the changes as well, so that they can hopefully get curious and want to learn more about nutrition. And we're there to back them up and to support them and to lead them to resources where they can learn more about how they can start prescribing plant-based diets to their patients instead of pills and potions and surgeries and procedures that really will never heal. So that's pretty exciting. We also do a tremendous amount of, I have that picture in twice. So sorry. Okay, so we also have a tremendous amount of community education that I thought I had a nice picture of one of our booths at a recent festival, but we go out and we table and we give people really compelling information on these graphic displays, large graphic displays that show the impact of our dietary choices. And then we also have interactive materials where with their own hands they can pick up some different blocks that represent different foods and see that the carbon footprint of the animal products is much heavier on the earth. Or they can learn about the water footprint of food. We also give them really tasty food samples, so while they're learning why they should eat this way, they also learn that it's possible to do so without sacrificing flavor. And then we lead them to programs. We get them signed up so they can learn the how to do it as well. And then I also have one more picture today of a recent potluck. We know that people need support to eat this way since it's countercultural. And so we have these really amazing, wonderful potlucks where people bring this delicious food, this whole food, plant-based, oil-free. Everyone has a good time. We always have people who are new to the lifestyle or who haven't adopted it yet but are curious. So we're giving them this possibility consciousness and letting them know there's other people who can do it too. And then they can learn. There's always education at these events. They can exchange recipes, and we have a good time. There's many other things we do as well, but I'm going to end this video now. But first, I just want to express my gratitude to Madhur for spreading the word to help bring about a more sustainable, healthy, just, compassionate, and well-fed human presence on Earth. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for watching and supporting this channel. If you're interested in getting in touch with me, we'll make sure that the contact information is in the notes. Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.